Anyway, here's
Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh. It is an honor for me to be here tonight. As Sharad said, my grandfather sailed from Punjab to California in 1913, and he settled in the farmland of California, where my dad was born, where I was born. And when he arrived, he couldn't become a citizen. And I wish he were here tonight to see that nearly 100 years later, that his grandchildren can be honored in a setting like this in our nation's capital. I was 20 years old when I grabbed my camera after 9/11 and began a journey that completely changed my life. Valarie Singh was murdered on September 15th, and he was someone my family had known as we spent time in Phoenix, and so it felt like as if an uncle had been killed. And I began to remember how the stories of the partition were never in my history book, how the 1984 anti-Sikh massacres were invisible, how most of my teachers hadn't even heard of my religion, so that's when the idea came to me to go forth and capture these stories. And I went forth with the words of my grandfather, to realize God and to realize yourself, you must act without fear, here and now. That's what Seva is. And so I acted. I got in my car with my cousin and we drove into Arizona, where we sat with Rana Sodhi and Harjeet Sodhi and their kids as they poured out their hearts and told us that the day after the murder, they were standing in front of all the metallic eyes, the cameras, in order to reach deep into that pain and create something transformative, to tell a story that would save other lives. From some unnamed courage, they were able to make good, to redeem that time in their brother's memory. I traveled to Ground Zero, where I met many of you here, and sat and watched the rubble as it smoked and interviewed Sikhs who were there on the ground, doctors who were saving lives in the aftermath. And I came to Washington, D.C., and this is where, Congressman, you're in the film. I came to an event organized by SCORE in December of 2001, where Congress people and Sikhs all over were coming together to talk about how our struggles are not individual, but we're joined by other communities throughout our country's history. My entire journey ended 5 years later as I traveled to India to meet the widow of Valarie Singh Sodhi, Rana's sister-in-law. And I had heard all of these stories of pain and loss and suffering, and as I approached her in this little village and this surrounded by farmland, she was there dressed all in white. There were dark circles under her eyes. The mention of her husband's name would make her cry. And I realized that I couldn't ask her anything but one question. What would you tell the people of America? And I was expecting resentment. I was expecting bitterness, because this is what I was beginning to feel all that time on the road. And she said, tell them thank you. When I went to my husband's funeral, they came out in the thousands, and they wept with me, and they cared for me. Tell them thank you for caring. It is this story that ends our film. The film follows my journey across America, and it's not just about the Sikh community. It expands into a larger exploration of who counts as American, what it means to be American. And in September, we made our world premiere on the 5-year memorial of Valarie Singh Sodhi's death in Arizona. And since then, we've been to 40 American cities across the country. We're working for theatrical and television release starting this fall, so look out for us. And the most remarkable thing that I've learned, going from coast to the south into the Midwest, is that this struggle to be seen, this struggle to be recognized, to be counted, for others to see us as we see ourselves, is not just our community struggle. It's every community who has come to American shores. It's this human longing to be recognized. A few months ago, I was in Nebraska, where I screened the film before an audience. Most of them were white. Most of them said they never heard of the word Sikh before. And this little old woman came to me afterwards, and she said, Valarie, I saw that family after 9/11, and I just wonder if I could do what they did to fight for what our country means. Drawing up the courage from our own pain. These stories across the country, Jewish Americans, Muslim Americans, Arab Americans, an African American man stood up and pointed to his braids and said, "My braids are my turban." I began to realize that these remarkable acts of solidarity is what binds us. And my message to you tonight is to say that we as Sikh Americans will not fully become American simply by telling other people who we are. We will become fully American by participating fully in the American experiment, by recognizing that our struggles are inextricably bound with the African American struggle, as the professor said earlier, with the Japanese American struggle, with the Irish, Catholic, German, with everyone's struggle. And finally, that seva can be radically interpreted to mean a website that binds people together, to mean getting involved in politics when you're a doctor, to mean creating an event like this where we become politically engaged, to mean telling a story. Seva can be storytelling, and seva can be supporting the storytellers before you. It's been a long and hard journey, and the film is out, and we are developing now educational curriculum to put into every school across the country, and we need your support. Now than ever, please support us and support the youth who have these dreams, who are willing to draw from the sacrifices you have made to be fully American. Thank you.